You probably think your empathy makes you a good judge of character, that your ability to feel what others feel protects you from manipulation, that you would sense something was wrong. That is exactly what every cult member thought before they joined. The people who joined Jim Jones were not weak. They were social workers, nurses, activists fighting racism in 1950s Indiana. The women Keith Raniere recruited to Next IVM were not gullible. They were actresses, heiresses, professionals seeking self-improvement. They joined because they wanted to help, because they felt something, because their empathy, the very thing they trusted most, was being used as a weapon against them. And the techniques that captured them, they are being used on you right now, in your relationships, in your workplace, in the communities you trust. Let me show you exactly how this works. Welcome to the cult mind, where psychology, power, and persuasion collide, and nobody is as immune as they think. Psychologist Alexandra Stein spent years studying why intelligent people join destructive groups. Her conclusion is disturbing. Cults deliberately create what she calls disorganized attachment, a state of fright without solution. The group becomes simultaneously the source of your terror and your only apparent safety from it. This exploits the most fundamental human instinct, the drive to seek protection through connection. Your empathy becomes the lock, and the cult leader holds the key. Robert Lifton identified 8 criteria for thought reform in 1961. One stands out for understanding empathy exploitation. He called it the cult of confession. Groups demand you share your deepest vulnerabilities, your secrets, your shame. Not for healing, for control. What you confess becomes leverage. Your openness becomes a weapon pointed back at you. Stephen Hassan's bite model maps exactly how this happens. Under emotional control, cults teach you that certain feelings are evil or selfish. They make you believe every problem is your own fault, never the leader's. They install phobias about leaving, beliefs that no happiness exists outside the group, that terrible consequences await anyone who questions. And here is the mechanism that makes it stick. Patrick Carnes' research on betrayal bonds shows that intermittent abuse combined with moments of kindness creates neurological addiction. Your brain becomes chemically dependent on the relationship itself. This is not weakness. This is biology being exploited by design. Jim Jones understood this perfectly. He built People's Temple by targeting people who genuinely wanted to fight injustice. In 1950s Indianapolis, during the civil rights struggle, he created a congregation that was 75% black. He positioned himself as a revolutionary. He provided real services, jobs, food programs, care for the disabled. He attracted idealistic people seeking to make a difference. Then he weaponized their compassion. Jones employed what researchers call the wounded leader persona. After his mother died, he told followers he wanted to cry but could not because leaders cannot afford to show weakness. This manufactured vulnerability triggered protective instincts. Members felt compelled to care for him, to sacrifice for him. When he eventually led them through suicide rehearsals called White Nights, they were too emotionally invested to resist. Survivor Deborah Blakey testified that they went through it without protest. They were exhausted. They could not react to anything. Keith Raniere took this playbook and industrialized it. His conviction on 7 federal counts provides the most documented legal record of empathy weaponization in history. He marketed Next IVM as workshops to actualize human potential with a new ethical understanding. He was venerated as Vanguard, supposedly the most ethical man in the world. The FBI criminal complaint shows how systematically he targeted vulnerable women. DOS, the secret slave group, was pitched as a women's empowerment program. Trial witness Sylvie testified that NXIVM taught her not to trust her instincts. They destroyed the very thing that might have warned her away. Then came the collateral system. Members provided material so damaging they would rather die than see it released. Nude photographs, false confessions, letters falsely accusing family members of abuse. Lauren Salzman testified her collateral had to be bad enough that she would rather die than see it made public. The trap was complete. Empathy became a cage. And here is where it gets personal. These same techniques appear in multi-level marketing companies. Attorney Douglas Brooks, who specializes in pyramid scheme victims, notes that MLMs train you to avoid anyone who questions the business, exactly the isolation technique cults use. They target mothers who want financial freedom for their families, then weaponize that love when the business fails. Online influencers exploit parasocial relationships the same way. Research shows that self-disclosure creates bonds even in one-sided interactions. Hassan identifies wellness gurus who build trust through manufactured vulnerability, then deploy classic coercive influence, creating us versus them mentalities, positioning themselves as the only source of truth, manufacturing crises to maintain engagement. Narcissistic partners use identical dynamics, the wounded persona that triggers caretaking, intermittent reinforcement creating addiction, confessions, extracted then weaponized, the cycle of idealization and devaluation that mirrors cult love bombing and punishment. Now look at your own life. Have you ever felt you could not question something without being attacked? That is thought control. Have you ever been told that outsiders just do not understand? That is information restriction. Have you ever shared something vulnerable and watched it get used against you later? That is the confession trap. These patterns are everywhere once you learn to see them. The goal is not to suppress your empathy. Compassion remains one of the most valuable human traits. The goal is to protect it, to develop the discernment that distinguishes genuine connection from manufactured dependency, to recognize when your desire to help is being redirected towards serving someone else's control. Genuine relationships promote your independence. Exploitative ones create dependency. That is the test. The techniques are invisible until they are not. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. If this opened your eyes to something you had not considered, subscribe. The patterns are everywhere. I will show you where to look.